All right, good morning. Welcome to those joining us here at Solar Energy International, as well as with the Colorado Energy Office this morning. I believe we're just starting to have folks that are trickling into the webinar. Great to have you here today. We always love to start off with hearing where folks are from. If you want to go ahead and enter your location in the chat box, we'd love to hear from you. I myself am coming from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania this morning. And we have speakers that are coming across the state of Colorado, and I expect we have attendees from across the US and possibly the globe. So great to have you all here. And I see we still have folks trickling in, but it is 12:01, so I'm going to start with an introduction to Solar Energy International and myself. So let me start off with saying my name is Marla Corper, and I'm the Development Director at Solar Energy International, and I'm also going to be your host here today. Thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you here. I'm really excited to talk to you about solar in our Colorado communities. At Solar Energy International, our vision is a world powered by renewable energy, and we're dedicated to training the global solar energy workforce. So for the past nearly 30 years, we've trained about 80,000 people on how to install, design, commission, and maintain solar electric systems. We're headquartered in Paonia, Colorado on the Western Slope, where we have a hands-on training facility. And regionally, we're also in Costa Rica, serving Latin America, and Oman, serving the Middle East. We also offer a plethora of courses online, and really in the COVID-19 world that we're living in right now, that's how we're delivering the majority of our training. So if you're interested in learning more about solar and exploring a career opportunity, we would love to share more with you about that. I encourage you to visit solarenergy.org or reach out to any of us at 970-527-7657. We'd love to talk with you one-on-one. I will put some information in the chat once we get started here about SEI, but I do want to jump into information about this webinar so you can get what you're here to hear about. So with that, I'm going to start by introducing you to our presenters today. This webinar is hosted by Solar Energy International in partnership with the Colorado Energy Office. And we have folks coming here to talk to you from both parties. So we have our very own Mary Marshall. She is Solar Energy International's Solar Forward Program Manager. And we have Michael Turner, the Director of Building Innovation and Energy Finance at the Colorado Energy Office. And last but not least, Delyn Southern, our Technical Specialist for the Colorado Energy Office. A few housekeeping things before we get started. This presentation today should last about 50 minutes, and then we're going to open it for questions. The way we'll be taking questions is through the Q&A section that should be at the bottom of your screen. Please at any time write any questions you have specifically into that bar, and we will be looking at those and then answering them at the end. If we're able to answer them as we go, we also may be typing back to you, but we'll definitely have a question and answer period at the end. And finally, if you're having any technical issues that aren't specific to this presentation, please write it in the chat so that I can take a look at that, and then you and I can work together to figure that out. Without any more waiting, I'd like to pass this over to Mary Marshall, the Solar Forward Program Manager, who's going to get us started here. Mary?
Great, let me just share my screen. Do you want to stop sharing yours? Okay, great. Okay. Great. Well, thank you everybody for joining us here today for this webinar. We're really excited to have everyone here to talk about our partnership that SEI is launching with the Colorado Energy Office. So the purpose of this webinar today is to present applicable tools from SEI and the Colorado Energy Office for renewable energy and energy efficiency in rural communities, and to share case studies of the impact of some of our programs. So we're gonna kick things off with SEI presenting success stories from the Solar Forward program and talk a little bit about our program offerings. And then the Colorado Energy Office will talk about some of their programs as well. It's Energy Performance Contracting Program for Gunnison County and the Northwest Regional Solar Project. So to start things off in the Zoom chat, I'm wondering if you all could just talk about what do you think some of the biggest challenges are faced by rural communities in adapting more renewable energy? It looks like a lot of people are talking about cost as well as grid connection, financing, affordability, policy, yeah, culture. Great. So this is all really great insight on some of the challenges that we face as rural communities to developing solar markets and more renewable energy. So in this presentation, we will hopefully cover some of these topics. And we'll also look at some case studies for counties in Colorado that have faced some of these challenges and participated in the Solar Forward program and used it as a way to address some of these unique challenges that exist for rural communities. So today we will cover what is SEI's Solar Forward program. We'll talk about how it helps communities. We'll also talk about the tools that this program has to offer communities, and then we'll cover challenges in rural communities to solar market development. So to start things off, we'll talk a little bit about the history of Solar Forward. As Marla mentioned before, Solar Forward is a program of Solar Energy International, which is based in Delta County, which is a rural community in Western Colorado. In 2015, 2 of 3 major coal mines shut down in this county, and along with the closure of those coal mines went hundreds of jobs for local community members. And as a major economic contributor to this community, with the coal mines going away, it was a really destabilizing blow to the local tax base. So during this time, SEI sought out a way to aid in economic development for the local community, and in a way that utilized what we know best and what aligns with our mission as a solar energy training facility nonprofit. So we started a program called Economic Revitalization Through Solar, which eventually became known as the Solar Forward program because that was a bit of a mouthful. So it was a holistic approach that included kickstarting a solar market through a bulk purchase program that involved partnering with local installers. It was also a high school trade training program called Solar in Schools. And then there was a policy focus, including things like advancing the passage of CPACE, a commercial financing mechanism for renewable energy and energy efficiency projects. And ultimately, these efforts were awarded a gold designation through the Department of Energy's SolSmart program. So coupled with SEI's workforce development focus, we asked, how can this program scale out to meet the needs of rural communities across the state? And that ultimately formed the Solar Forward program. Solar Forward envisions a world where barriers to clean energy adoption are addressed by local grassroots economic and policy solutions. While each community's solutions are unique, together they are a collective force in addressing the climate crisis. Some of the highlights to date of the Solar Forward program are 1.5 megawatts of new installed solar across the state of Colorado through this program, 250 total PV systems, around 24 new jobs across the state of Colorado, and hundreds of folks educated on the benefits of solar energy and energy efficiency. So the Solar Forward program is leveraging the technical expertise of SEI, an industry-leading solar training facility, to help rural communities meet local sustainability goals, achieve economic development benefits, and create jobs. So many big cities right now have renewable energy goals and sustainability goals, and they have the resources to meet those goals. But rural communities that could really benefit the most from the economic development benefits of a solar market oftentimes don't have the same resources. They don't have the sustainability departments in their local governments. They don't have the same access to educational resources for the community. So this program addresses those barriers, and it also helps rural communities grow solar markets to create local resiliency. And that's money that stays in the community that needs it the most, especially when you're affected by things like coal mine closures, when you're not spending so much money on your utility bills that's going to a wholesale electricity supplier outside of the community. You're keeping that in the community to benefit the local economy. So this program includes free technical consulting from an SEI advisor to help guide you on how to implement bulk solar purchase outreach programs. And you also get access to a toolkit, which is compiled by industry experts that makes it easy to launch these outreach initiatives. Also with this program, we offer SEI workforce development training, and also we have our SEI professional services for third-party consultation. So how the program works is a nonprofit with the interest and capacity to implement a solarized program will apply to participate in Solar Forward. You get paired with an SEI technical advisor who will have this toolkit for community solar initiatives and technical experience, and they'll empower this community group with tools and in-person consulting to launch their own solarized program. This nonprofit then acts as solarized program coordinators on the ground, launching the solar bulk purchase program in their community. And then finally, the county benefits as a whole, and community members register to go solar, jobs are created, folks learn about solar energy, and the county reaps the benefits of a solar market. So some examples of what this toolkit has to offer is we have technical documents like requests for proposals to choose installers. We have customizable marketing materials, outreach materials like presentations that you can use in your campaign, financing materials to help you coordinate with local credit unions or banks to get them involved. We have a website technical consultant who will set up your website and database, and as well as media resources. And then of course you get a technical advisor who will help you utilize all of these tools. This is just a bit of examples of some of the tools that we have in the toolkit. You see here customizable marketing materials. We have a series of recorded videos that give some more technical insight on some of the topics that you might cover in your program. For example, how to choose a partner installer. And then of course, all of our partnered community groups, our partnered nonprofits will have access to free SEI training. So in addition, we have access to SEI industry-leading training as scholarships awarded to local community members. So if you have community members who are interested in getting involved in the solar industry, we have SEI scholarships. They can go through our classes and become trainees in your community. We understand that one of the barriers that exists to solar market development in rural communities is that there might not be a lot of solar installers or installation companies in the area. So we provide assistance from our professional services. SEI Professional Services is an engineering consulting company, and they're able to offer quality support for local installers. And this will just ensure that the market grows sustainably and safely, and that the installs are happening to quality standards. So we have here a case study from Delta County, and we have Brad Burrett, who was our partnered installer when the Solarized program was implemented in Delta County through Solar Forward, and he's going to talk a little bit about how this impacted his business.
We did Solarize programs in Delta County 3 years running, 2015 through 2018, of which you were involved with.
Yes.
And since Solarize began, we have grown about 4 times in gross sales. And I would say we've grown more than that in employment, full-time equivalents. Because I was working too much, especially at the beginning of Solarize. But that's evened out somewhat. So yeah, we're in a pretty good space right now. We did.
Great. So as you can see, this program has a benefit to local installers, and not only does it increase solar installations through this program, it creates sustainable development that will continue on through the duration of the outreach campaign. So now we have Brad, who is going to talk a little bit about the short-term and the long-term impacts that this program had on his community.
They were able to generate enough leads that we were able to sustain the growth that we started that first year. And, we knew that when Solarize was over that we'd be on our own. So we ramped up our promotion and advertising and, increased our budget a few times to compensate for the loss of the Solarize campaigns. And, that was very successful. We were able to keep running and keep the jobs coming. And the long-term benefit of Solarize was that solar largely became known and way more mainstream in Delta County because of the Solarize campaigns. So it was great for the county and it was great for our company.
So community education on solar goes a long way in increasing awareness and adoption of solar energy. One of the biggest barriers that exists to adopting solar energy in rural communities is just kind of the misconceptions that abound around solar energy, or people thinking that it might not be as accessible as it actually is. And the Solarize program is a typically 13-week educational outreach campaign, and the tools provided through Solar Forward to launch this campaign are educational resources that will allow you to present to the community and just teach about what the benefits of solar entail. So ultimately in Delta County, this program saw 400 new kilowatts of installed PV, or 400 kilowatts of new installed solar, 60 new systems in the community, 9 new jobs created, and 50 educational events that were implemented in the community. So Delta County actually had 3 different Solarize campaigns 3 years in a row, and it created sustainable development of the solar market in that community. So now we have Hunter Edberg, who was one of our partners in Gunnison County. He was a Master's of Environmental Management student at Western Colorado University, and through a fellowship with the Cold Harbor Institute, a nonprofit there, him and another student, Ellen Ross, implemented the Solarize program as their capstone.
And it would have been spring of 2018 that I was approached by Suzanne Yui, who was at the time the director of Cold Harbor, and said she had been approached by SEI talking about the Solar Forward program, and immediately was interested just because it sounded really multifaceted and that there's a lot of elements to it, which I think was a really good fit for the grad program and the grad project I was looking for. Like I said, I didn't want all my eggs in that one basket. And so with Solar Forward, there's a lot of different elements that we could kind of tackle with that, and ended up partnering with Ellen Ross. And we ended up actually completing the first co-led master's project out of the MEM. And so that was cool to work together collaboratively with her. And I think between the two of us, we were able to expand the scope of the project a lot more than just kind of the original intent of the program. So obviously we did the Solar Forward program, and I felt like it was pretty successful. We were able to get a lot of traction, both in Gunnison and Crested Butte. That's the thing about Gunnison County. There's less than 17,000 people in all of Gunnison County, and it's a gigantic county. So it's relatively small in terms of population, but I feel like that also helped us reach a lot of people quickly because it was a pretty well-knit community. Yeah, kind of the same things that I also appreciate about Solar Forward applied for Gunnison County. They had tried it in Delta County after the closures of the coal mines. And I felt like that was a good effort to try and kind of reboost some local energy economy. And Gunnison, it's a pretty, not, I wouldn't say depressed area, but it's not like, the median household income was super great either there. And so even just a couple energy jobs, good paying energy jobs would make an impact around there. And we ended up partnering with Nunatech, which was awesome to work with. They're based out of actually Alma, which is a tiny little town north of Gunnison. But they were great to work with, had been involved with SCI. They're both SCI instructors. And I feel like throughout the process, we were able to get, I think, 97 kWs worth of actual contracted installations by the time the grad program was over. But I know Lena and Jay have had a lot more interest just based on that program that they were able to contract later. And I feel like we made a pretty solid impact in the time that we had there, just as far as people being aware that solar was an option. And also we raised a lot of discussions working with the city of Gunnison on their local net metering policy, which we were actually able to change, which was awesome, along with the help of a lot of other people as well. But I feel like all of those discussions and the events that we were hosting definitely, more than anything, I think, elevated the conversation around renewables in the area, which I think was ultimately our goal. And it would.
So some of the topics that we talked about earlier when we entered into the chat, some of the challenges that exist in rural communities were addressed by, just introducing solar into the conversation. Some of the benefits from the program that Hunter mentioned are they ended up improving their local net metering policy to really open up the market in a sustainable way. Also through their program, they incorporated energy efficiency education. They partnered with their local rural electric cooperative, and Hunter is going to talk a little bit more about the long-term impact of introducing solar to the county there.
On the short-term impacts, we got, I think, 13 different systems up on houses, which was awesome. Like I said, there's more work that came out of that. I'm not sure about the exact numbers on it. And as well as changing the local net metering policy, I feel like that was definitely a barrier for a lot of people that were considering solar. They just couldn't economically justify it because any excess power, the way the rule was, any excess power that their solar generated, they'd be paid, I think, like 3 cents a kilowatt hour for that excess generation. And so it really didn't do much for them if they had any excess. And we changed that to on par with the city's rate. So it's a match for match, which was awesome. And I feel like a lot of people started considering solar after that was in place. And also, kind of on the flip side, Ellen worked a lot with Gunnison County Electric Association on a lot of energy efficiency measures. So she hosted a couple workshops. GCA was nice enough to donate some energy efficiency equipment. And so like people who attended the workshops could go up and put film on their windows and maybe replace some light bulbs and simple things around the house that they could do to lower their energy needs, which we always tried to do in tandem with solar. The less power you use, the less solar you need, and you just have an overall smaller energy footprint. But as far as the long-term impacts, I think those were bigger for sure than the short-term impacts. Obviously, we created a discussion with the city, and they ended up actually moving forward with it's yet to be seen yet, but they're working on a 600 kW project right now in the city of Gunnison in association with the city, the county, and the airport. The county itself is working on doing some rooftop solar in the city of Gunnison. The university is still looking at solar pretty heavily. They're still struggling to find a site, which is tricky around Gunnison with the topography. But I think the long-term impacts will continue to keep elevating that process of switching over to renewables, especially in a rural county that is, right now in Colorado, the state is essentially on fire, and we're seeing direct impacts from climate change, low water levels, record heat, and then Gunnison is no different. And a lot of their economy is based on water. And I feel like they were really starting to associate climate change with their water resources and realizing that they needed to start doing something on their end locally to try and change things. And so I think long-term impacts out of that, I'm sure there will be more projects out of the MEM that are energy related, hopefully some that are solar specifically. And I think, obviously Kate and Luke, professors at Western, will continue that conversation there as well. And I think overall, just really elevated the conversation. On the short.
So the Solarize program through Solar Forward really can provide a framework for community outreach. And as Hunter was saying before, the different programming that you can offer through the Solarize program can, really be as big as you want it to be. Using this program as a framework, you can introduce topics like energy efficiency to your community. You can coordinate with local stakeholders like your rural electric cooperative, and you can pursue policy solutions. Just really, starting that conversation could go a long way. And now Hunter is going to touch a little bit on some of these challenges that we face as rural communities and how education addressed some of those barriers.
I would say as far as like pushback on renewables, we received relatively little in Gunnison, but I still feel like in general, there's still a fair amount of confusion around renewables. And I don't think that's a Gunnison specific thing. I think that's across the country and probably across the world in a lot of places. That they associate it with more expensive electricity, which, maybe 10 years ago that was the case, but prices have come down so far now that it's competitive with even natural gas. And so I think there's just a lot of, I don't want to say ignorance, because that's not the right word, but just people who didn't know the benefits, who weren't sure that it could work for them, who weren't sure that it could work for the county. And I think, in a lot of, especially coal and oil regions, there is a local love for that because it's provided them with economic capital for a long time. And when you come along, they were going to get rid of that and replace it with something new. If that's all you say, then there's going to be a lot of pushback. So I really think in a lot of these places, especially in the West, like especially our neighbors to the north in Wyoming, as that transitions out of coal, there's going to be a lot of resources and a lot of help needed there to make that transition. Because if you just swap out, there's going to be a lot of people kind of left in the dust when it's settling. And obviously we don't want that in this transition. As far as Gunnison specifically, I think the biggest elements were people didn't think it would work in the snow and the cold. People thought it was going to be way more expensive than their traditional electric bill. And we were able to kind of diffuse those questions with just simple facts. And I think we held quite a few events throughout the course of the program, and many of them were very successful. And even though people might not have signed up for solar, which is fine, they might have gotten a little bit more energy efficient in their homes. They might have gotten the idea out of their head that solar was this evil thing that was coming to replace their job. And so even though we might not have necessarily created a huge impact as far as installations, I think we did change a lot of people's minds.
So just a huge thank you to our past program partners, Hunter and Brad, for providing some insight for this presentation today. This is the end result of Hunter and Ellen's program. They had 100 kilowatts of PV installed, 17 new systems, 4 new jobs, and 16 educational events for the community. And as Hunter was saying as well, they had a lot of policy-related successes and just a broader impact of education on solar for the community. So we're really excited that we're here today because we have a new partnership with the Colorado Energy Office where we'll be working with communities in the state of Colorado to participate in that just transition to a renewable energy future. So thanks so much for listening to the presentation today. I'm going to pass it off to the Colorado Energy Office to talk about their programs.
Great. Thank you so much, Mary. I assume everyone can hear me at this point. I'm going to start sharing my screen here. And all right, there we go. Let's see if I can move this so you guys aren't getting. Great. Thank you so much, Mary. Again, my name is Michael Turner. I'm the Director of Building Innovation and Energy Finance at the Colorado Energy Office. You know, I think we're so thrilled to have this partnership with SEI and promoting their Solar Forward program and all the programs we have at the Energy Office, because, you know, the crux of this is really this community-led effort and really working hand in hand with communities and making sure that they have the resources to promote energy efficiency and renewable energy and really turn this into an economic recovery tool. So I'm going to just briefly kind of cover some of the work at the Colorado Energy Office before I hand it over to my colleague Delyn to talk more specifically about a very exciting renewable energy project in Northwest Colorado. But very excited to kind of see the audience here and people from all over the state, all over the country, all over the world, really. And hopefully there's some lessons learned here in Colorado that we can really promote and hopefully stimulate a discussion here and spread best practices all over. So with that, I just wanted to briefly touch on, there we go, kind of where we are as a state in Colorado. So to kick things off, I wanted to talk about Governor Jared Polis's Bold 4. When he came into office almost 2 years ago, he established these kind of 4 priorities of his administration. And the one that I'll focus on right now is just that he set a goal for Colorado to be on a path to 100% renewable energy by 2040. And why that's significant, of course, is because you have the sort of top level leadership driving state agencies and directives, and really, I think, establishing Colorado as a pioneer and really directing his administration, his cabinet members to implement this pathway. And in addition to this, last legislative session, the state of Colorado also established greenhouse gas goals for the state, both for 2025, 2030, and 2040 to get to 90% reduction in those greenhouse gas emissions from a 2005 level. So I think, you know, for us, that's significant to have that leadership. And I'm going to talk a little bit more specifically about what that actually means in practice. How are we as a state agency implementing that goal? Before I do that, I'm going to do, I hope, a poll here. Yes. I really just want to get a sense of our audience here. What sector describes you and your interest in renewable energy? And I think this will be just informative for me, and then also kind of shape some of the information that we'll be sharing with you all today. I'll give you just a couple seconds more, and then we'll go to the results here. Great. So this is very interesting for us to know, I think, because, you know, as an energy office, we actually have programs for each sector that we're talking to today. We're going to dig a little bit more into some of the resources available for the commercial and local government. But what I'm going to do is encourage everyone to go to our website and look at some of the other programs that I'll be kind of touching on today. So as an energy office, our mission is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and consumer energy costs. And we do this really through advancing clean energy, energy efficiency, and zero emission vehicles. When we think about how we deploy our programs and services, and when we're working on policy and regulatory proceedings, we're thinking about the entire state of Colorado. And I think that's unique to the work that we do, is that we really are thinking about all 4 corners of the state. And as you can see here, we really have programs that cover a variety of different sectors within energy. So we have a weatherization assistance program offering energy efficiency services for low-income households, transportation fuels and technologies. So really, how do we advance electric vehicles and the charging station infrastructure that's needed to deploy those? We have a variety of different policy and regulatory tools. And then last, and certainly not least, is the building innovation and energy finance. And this is where me and my team really work closely to deploy these programs to communities and address, in my mind, the three biggest challenges. And I saw some of this in the chat when Mary was asking kind of what are some of the biggest barriers. It is information. It's getting this information in the hands of people that need it. It's technical. So how do you get the technical information, the energy efficiency, investment grade audits, the renewable energy assessments? And that's great. That information is really important. But then how do you act on it? And the last, and I saw this in the chat a lot, was the financing. And I think, I'm very excited to have Delynn present on EPC because it's a very powerful financing tool for deployment of energy efficiency and renewables. Just to give you a scope of what we work on in the Buildings and Finance Division, we have an ag efficiency program, we have an industrial strategic energy management program, we have the energy performance contracting, a powerful tool to actually get deep retrofits and renewable energy projects paid for. We have Renew Our Schools, so we work with school districts all across the state. We have a commercial property assessed clean energy, another alternative financing mechanism to pay for some of these measures. And then we have a Renew loan program, which is a low interest residential loan program for energy efficiency and renewable energy. Actually, 75% of those Renew loans are actually going to pay for solar, which is kind of an interesting fact about that. So you kind of get the gamut of what we're working on at the Energy Office, and certainly encourage you to reach out with any questions or suggestions about what else we can be working on. But I think it truly represents, to go back to that community-driven approach. These are the resources and tools that we're putting in the hands of communities so that they can actually, I think, make some progress on the environmental goals and the environmental goals of the state. But then also, how do we, I think, use these tools and these sort of environmental mandates as an economic tool, an economic driver? So I just wanted to spend just a couple seconds talking about kind of what that transition looks like. This transition to a clean energy economy is about environmental greenhouse gas emission savings, but it's also about economic savings and reducing your energy costs. And really, I think, getting a lot of economic recovery tools and driving new markets in some of these communities that are transitioning to clean energy. So just to give you a look at kind of where things stand now and kind of where things are going, you can see that the renewable energy space is blossoming. It's going to continue to grow. Solar is one of the fastest growing job markets in the state, in the country. It's one of the only energy sources that grew during the pandemic. And, I think that we really view this transition to clean energy as an economic stimulus and an opportunity to open new markets in these communities. And so I think, a lot of what Mary's talking about and a lot of the programs that we have at the Energy Office are really also going to create more economic opportunities for these communities. And then last, I just wanted to give an update. This is from the 2018 E2 Clean Energy Jobs Report. And it really kind of shows you the position of Colorado in terms of clean energy jobs and the industry breakdown. We have clean energy jobs in 64 counties across the state of Colorado. There are only 6 other states in the nation that have more clean energy jobs than Colorado. And so we really see this as an opportunity to stimulate the economy for these communities. And so very happy to pass it over to Delynn to talk about a very exciting and unique energy performance contracting program in Northwest Colorado. So with that, thank you all for your time and attention, and look forward to more discussions, and please reach out after this webinar.
All right, Michael, thank you. I'm Dylan Southern. I'm a technical specialist and program lead here at the Energy Office. We do have, a chat question here. This is similar to the one that Mary actually posted earlier. So if you didn't have a chance to respond to her question then, certainly do it now. Essentially, what are your perceived barriers to adopting renewable energy projects or policies? And, I'll go ahead and move on to the next slide. Okay, so, in thinking about resiliency, economic recovery, I think it's important for us to identify ways to facilitate these efforts, especially, in the face of the barriers that you guys have mentioned in the chat in regards to the adoption of renewable energy. I think a main barrier is definitely training, education, as well as financing. So what the Colorado Energy Office does is we provide a program for public jurisdictions who have capital improvement needs or energy goals and need a creative way to finance the project. The Colorado Energy Office has what we call the Energy Performance Contracting Program, or EPC, as it's commonly referred to. At its core, EPC is a financing and contracting tool that allows entities to use cost savings from facility improvements to fund capital projects. The Energy Office has offered the EPC program for over 20 years. It's actually one of our longest running programs here at the Energy Office. In that time, we've helped communities identify over 40 million in cost savings while reducing the need for 200 million kWh of energy. Our office offers no cost support throughout the life cycle of the project. So, this includes RFP toolkits. We have staffed engineers that provide technical review of reports and proposals. Additionally, we do have state-approved contract templates and guidance documents, as well as a pool of 13 pre-qualified energy service companies. These firms are, nationally recognized as leaders in the industry, and they're able to provide feasible energy and capital solutions for public jurisdictions. So EPC is a great tool. It's not necessarily the right fit for all projects and all communities. So it's important, to kind of identify what factors make it the best approach for implementing your projects. So perhaps you're a public entity, you have high utility costs, capital improvement or deferred maintenance needs. Perhaps you have budget constraints, as well as, sustainability goals or climate action plans. These are all good factors for a community that should maybe explore EPC to holistically identify any capital improvement opportunities, as well as the cost savings associated with those. The EPC program does have, our energy service companies that will provide solutions for capital and financing. And all of this is to help achieve those community goals through reduced energy use as well as operational costs. So how do we do this? As mentioned previously, EPC allows entities to reallocate cost savings from energy efficiency, water improvements to repay the cost of the project over the contract term. So the chart we have on the screen right now is focused on the renewable energy aspect of this EPC model. So renewable energy is not technically an energy conservation measure, and so savings are not seen through reduced energy, but rather through avoided costs. So that first column shows your current expense from purchasing utilities. by including renewable energy options through either a power purchase agreement or ownership of the system. Costs for utilities are decreased, and those savings can be used to access financing or repay the project costs. All right, so now I wanted to take a moment to highlight an ongoing project we have in Northwest Colorado. It's a regional solar project that is the first of its kind here in the state. You know, it's focusing on economies of scale and holistic regional benefits of implementing renewable and energy efficiency measures. So it's really a group of communities in Northwest Colorado. The larger and maybe financially stronger communities are working alongside even those smaller rural communities in order to access better grants, better finance, and better technical support to ensure project success across the whole region and benefit the local economies. The goal is to really help these communities transition into that more diverse energy economy while also stimulating those local communities. So this is kind of the implementation process that Northwest Colorado has taken in order to actualize their renewable energy goals. So the communities here on the list, there's I think about 8 of them at this point. They worked with the Department of Local Affairs, or DOLA, which is a state agency here in Colorado. And they received a planning grant in 2019 to incorporate a renewable energy feasibility study into their strategic planning. These communities actually selected McKinstry, who is one of our pre-qualified energy service companies, to perform this feasibility study. So McKinstry, they did the study and determined that there was an opportunity to aggregate all of these projects into a single energy performance contract and then apply for an additional DOLA grant for the actual implementation of about 2 megawatts of ground and roof mount solar across the region. The goal here is they'll divide the grant amongst the parties in order to get the ROI for each community at or around 10 years. So in order to satisfy the Department of Local Affairs requirement for, proof of funding, McKinstry used our energy performance contracting program model to demonstrate how operational savings from the upgrades will be used to access financing and thus be acceptable as the match requirements from the Department of Local Affairs. In addition, the funds received from DOLA go towards the project's capital stack and reduces that payback for each of those communities. So here, this just kind of highlights some of the main benefits we hope to see from this project. It's still kind of in its infancy. We've completed the investment grade audits and are working towards submitting the grant applications to the Department of Local Affairs. But essentially, the recommended measures are 2 megawatts of solar PV across the region, as well as some energy conservation measures that include lighting, controls, VFDs, and heat pumps. I think in looking at the community impact, there's reduced greenhouse gas emissions, which, there's an argument to say that improves public health. It encourages environmental leadership. And overall, the project should create energy reduction of about 37%. Another great benefit is obviously the reduced energy use as well as utility savings. So now they'll have predictable utility rates. They'll be able to incorporate net metering and peak shaving strategies. There's reduced reliance on the utility company, as well as guaranteed savings, which are required as part of the energy performance contracting program. Another great benefit has to do with resiliency and risk mitigation. Having, renewable energy does provide them with reliable generation during impact events. Their systems will be coupled with battery backups. So it does provide that extra assurance during, any occurrence. And then our office, the Colorado Energy Office, supplies that no-cost technical support, as well as those state-approved contracts and templates. And then the Department of Local Affairs is able to provide a regional manager to support them throughout the project, as well as provide the actual funds for implementation. And they do that through the Energy Impact Assistance Funds Grant Program. All right, so another case study that we want to highlight and was previously mentioned in this presentation is Gunnison County. Gunnison County, in my opinion, is one of the state's leaders in the transition towards a clean energy future. They have used resources at the Colorado Energy Office to develop and implement a variety of climate forward projects. This includes, building energy efficiency measures, geothermal systems, solar gardens and PV arrays, fleet upgrades to low emission vehicles, as well as a variety of recycling programs and other green initiatives. And as mentioned, Gunnison County also used that Solarize program to encourage renewable energy adoption. And I think the big takeaway with Gunnison is how they really used a variety of engagement strategies to get the entire community on board with renewable energy and the benefits that it can provide to everyone. So here, this timeline kind of shows the journey that Gunnison has taken to achieve their county goals. So they've used multiple strategies to keep momentum. They've enacted ballot initiatives, encouraged community-based programs. They've performed feasibility studies and strategic planning exercises. And finally, they've used the energy performance contracting program to actually implement many of these improvement measures for the public buildings. So starting in about 1999, they entered into an energy performance contract. So the year one savings from this project equated to about $51,000 a year and is estimated to save the county over $1 million in the next 20 years. That's equivalent to 300 tons per year in reduction in CO2 emissions. And as a result of this project, a 14.9% reduction from the pre-retrofit CO2 emissions. And so then in 2008, the city adopted a BOCC strategic plan. And what that was is they wanted to meet or exceed the energy efficiency goals and timelines established by the energy efficiency community in 2008. And then by 2010, they wanted to reduce emissions from vehicles by 10%. By 2012, increase net efficiency in county buildings by 10%. And then in 2009, in support of all of this, they established a county-wide green team, as well as approved the inclusion of a clean energy financing options ballot initiative. So all of these steps really set the stage for future EPC projects. And so that kind of takes us to the present day. So when considering the sustainability mission, Gunnison County officials were committed to leveraging solar power to achieve their strategic greenhouse reduction goals. They selected a company called Johnson Controls that's worked with county leaders over the past couple years to really put their plan into action. They completed solar arrays that were built on 6 county buildings with approximately 308 kilowatts in generation power. 2 of the sites are located on buildings which have previously been converted to all electric heating and cooling. And then the solar arrays will directly offset the power needs of facilities. And the county estimates that solar will generate 40% of the power for the courthouse and 80% of the power for the health and human services building. And to take that a little bit further, Gunnison County has also just recently, as of this summer, begun a phase 2 project that will look at water source heat pumps as well as building envelopes to really complement some of those solar PV initiatives. And again, they're able to leverage those various state programs to offset costs, provide technical assistance in support of these energy and infrastructure goals. And so here in Colorado, you know, many of our projects rely on various funding opportunities, you know, to make some cash flow. A couple of the major ones are Department of Local Affairs, or DOLA, has an energy impact grant. There are 2 tiers. Tier 1 is for $200,000 and Tier 2 is up to $1 million. There are 2 grant cycles a year, with the first one this year closing at October 1st, and then the new cycle opening in the spring of 2021. So DOLA grants for renewable energy and energy efficiency require only a 25% match at this time, where generally that grant would require a 50% match. So that is, you know, encouraging more of these projects that apply for DOLA grants to really include some of those clean energy pieces. Additionally, a lot of our projects do also take advantage of the investment tax credit as well as utility incentive programs. And all of this helps, you know, with the capital stack of the project and bringing down that ROI. And I think at that point, you know, that's our highlights for Gunnison as well as for the Northwest Regional Solar Project. I'll hand it back over to the SEI team.
Great. Thank you, Delyn. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Mary. It was great to hear from each of you today. And I hope that everyone found this presentation informative and hopefully exciting, because there's a lot of great stuff going on in the state of Colorado right now. I recognize we're coming up on 1 o'clock. We are going to go and jump into questions and extend past the hour. So if you're able to stay with us, please do. And if not, we'll be sending out a recording, including this question and answer period that you can look at later. So thank you so much if you have to drop off. And if not, we'd love to jump into the questions. So I'm going to go ahead and field some questions that we have here. I should mention, if you have any questions that have come up, please type them in the question and answer portion of Zoom at the bottom of your screen, and then we will fill them here now. I'm going to start off with a question for Mary. We got a question from Martin asking, do rural areas more often install ground-mounted solar PV because there's more space available?
I would say that it really varies dependent on the site. If we're talking about like grid-tied residential systems, you know, we have seen people install ground mount, but it's just dependent on shading on your property, really the location of the system that would make it the most efficient and have the highest production. But yeah, I would say we definitely do see like ground mounts more in rural communities than not rural communities, because there is space for it. And we've also seen some cool applications of ground mounted systems, like folks have sheep that like to use it for shade and things like that. So good question.
Wonderful, thank you. Now this question is from Michael, I believe. We got a question, is there a roadmap or blueprint for starting up a greenfield solar project? For example, something that is outlining the steps or orders of operations from start to finish.
I don't have a roadmap or blueprint. Delyn, I don't know if that's a resource that's provided via the EPC process or through the ESCOs, but it's not a tool that we offer through any of our existing programs.
Yeah, we don't have a formal document for that, but maybe not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Wonderful. All right, great. I believe this question is for Delynn. Looks like I have two here from Marianne that are related, so I'm going to wrap them into one. So is the NW program working with Just Transition, and is it working with co-ops that are served by Tri-State? And she mentioned that she's seeing obstacles here with her co-op, her local co-op.
Sure, I would say yes to both of those questions. This project is in that Just Transition region. And so we have we've started those conversations with that stakeholder group. And, you know, really kind of based on lines what SEI does, being able to also add that educational and training component alongside you know, a solar installation like this is huge. And so that's the efforts we're working on with the Just Transition team. And then, yeah, so there is, you know, the issue with the co-op. So here in Colorado, the co-ops typically have to follow what we call a 95-5 rule, which regulates the amount of generation you can sell back to the co-op or to Tri-State. So with co-ops that have kind of reached that percentage threshold, that's where we have to get creative or pivot our strategies. But, you know, over time, our relationships with Tri-State and with the co-ops have gotten better, and we've been engaging with them more and hope to, you know, really establish a framework that supports these renewable projects better.
All right, this question is either for Delynn or Michael. I'm not sure who's best to answer, but a question from Martin here. Speaking to the financials, can monies be shifted in the budget based on projected energy savings, meaning ahead of the time before those savings are actually made?
Okay, so yeah, so the way the energy performance contract model works is basically you're reallocating your existing utility budget and using it to pay for the project scope of work. So, you know, in doing that, those savings can be used as that debt obligation repayment. The energy performance contracting program here in Colorado requires that our ESCOs guarantee the savings that they present to the community. And what that means that if for whatever reason those savings were not realized, the ESCO would be on the hook for, you know, making the community whole. So what that does when you're accessing financing from a lender's point, it's a very low risk approach. Because, you know, those savings are guaranteed. So future budgets will not be impacted by the EPC project. Project.
Great, thank you. And that looks like those are all of our questions that we've received today. So I've gone ahead and shared my screen. Here's our contact information from each of our presenters today. So again, that's Mary, Michael, and Delynn that you heard from. And I'd like to encourage you, if you have any more questions, please reach out directly to these folks. They're the experts in their field and they really do want to engage with you. So would love to continue this conversation past today. And the final sentiment I'll share is that this is a partnership that is just blossoming between SEI and the Colorado Energy Office. We're going to be offering more webinars so that we can share successes with you all and then continue to figure out how we can build together towards a clean energy economy for Colorado and think about how that affects folks across the state and the world. The country and the world, I'm sorry. But all that to say, we're just getting started. We would love to have you be a part of it. So please join us in the future. And thanks so much for spending your time with us here today. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.